Good day, everyone. Today we will discuss the investigative report versus daily news. So we will differentiate investigative reports from daily news based on its elements, characteristics, approaches, and we will give some examples. So last time, mayroong mga questions about identifying investigative reports from newscasts. So in our previous activity, I told you to watch a certain program. So I gave examples like TV Patrol World, and sa GMA meron tayong 24 oras. And yung iba siguro iba din yung pinapanood na mga palabas or news reports or news presentation. So from that report, so nagsisimula ang isang newscast program, 6:30 p.m. natatapos around 8 p.m. So meron na tayo no na 6:30, 7:30. So almost 2.5 hours or meron din ng mga almost 2 hours ang isang newscast program. So, paano natin ma-identify yung mga investigative reports doon kumpara sa mga straight news na kino-consider natin or tinatawag natin na daily news. So, what makes it different from other types of journalism? Itong tinatawag natin na investigative reporting or investigative news. So, investigative reporting has many or sometimes widely divergent meanings. To understand what is investigative reporting, it may be best to start by explaining what it is not. So, ibig sabihin, identify natin what is a news or what do we mean by straight news. So, if we will go back to our discussion on our subject, news writing and reporting, we can easily identify a news if it caters the 5 Ws and 1 H. A straight news can stand with only one uh, angle of the story. So it can stand with 4 to 5 sentences only. So it is said that all reporting is investigative. So bakit kaya? Bakit sinasabi na lahat ng klase ng report ay investigative? So can we consider a straight news as an investigative report? So that question can be answered later on. And or makikita nyo na lang, malalaman nyo na lang ang sagot along with our discussion. So after all, journalists routinely dig for facts. Of course, even if you are writing a straight news, you are digging factual information. So they ask questions, they get information, they investigate. But is this really the case? Or in the day-to-day practice of journalism, how deep do reporters really dig? So gaano kalalim yung kanilang mga tinatanong? And how complete or original is the information that they present? So ibig sabihin, in daily reporting, kinakailangan ng ganitong mga proseso. So ang tanong, ang proseso ba sa daily news or straight news ay parehas din sa proseso kapag tayo ay nagsusulat ng investigative report? So journalists go beyond what they have seen and what has been said to unearth more facts and to provide something new and previously unknown. So madalas, kapag nagsusulat tayo, straight news, say for example, madalas, halimbawa, nagse-celebrate tayo ng Rizal Day. So we usually report on stories about wreath-laying ceremonies, going back to the story of Rizal. So how about if we will write a story about it in an investigative reporting format? So in this world, great attention is paid to so-called ordinary people who have encountered a wall and cannot seem to solve some of their basic needs. So madalas, mga kwento natin sa mga ganitong mga stories, ilang percentage or mga SWS survey, ilang percentage yung naghihirap pa rin. We usually focus on the percentage, on the numbers. But how about if we will write an investigative report about these topics? So, kinakailangan ng mas mahaba or mas malalim na investigation if we will focus on the format of investigative. And sabi dito, we will unearth more facts and we will provide something new. So, madalas, di ba, pag nakakakita tayo, basa tayo ng stories about percentage, alam na natin, parang dalawang bagay lang yan, tataas or bababa ang isang survey, di ba? So, hanggang ganun lang kapag nagsusulat tayo ng straight news. But in the investigative report, we need more time. So, what is covered by the investigative reporting? First, it has to be relevant to the society. So, ano ibig sabihin? Kinakailangan mas kapaki-pakinabang sa mga tao. Kinakailangan mas maraming detalye na makukuha yung mga tao sa impormasyon na dinideliver mo or sa information na isinusulat mo. If we compare it to daily news, okay, nalaman namin percentage, so what? May konting so what doon sa daily news or sa straight news na sinusulat natin. But in the investigative reporting, kinakailangan mas mapatunayan or ma-prove mo doon sa storya nyo na this is worth reporting, this is worth writing. Next, it has to deal with irregularities in the society. So in this world, great attention is paid to the so-called ordinary people, sabi ko kanina, who have encountered a wall and cannot seem to solve some of their basic needs. So the golden rule is that journalists have to protect the ordinary people and fight against big criminals. Well, so madalas, ang ina-unearth natin ng mga information ay yung mabibigat or malalaking impormasyon na makaka break ng isang katahimikan or makakapaglinaw ng mga bagay-bagay. So for example, about the issue of warak of Duque. So bakit nasabi ni Duque yun? Bakit may mga ganong reaction ng mga tao? Bakit ganon na lang ang pag-protect ni President Duterte kay Duque. So, mga ganong issue, kinakailangan i-unearth natin. Kinakailangan na mas mag-dig deep tayo sa mga istorya na parang kung titingnan ng isang ordinaryong tao, mga simpleng reaction lang, pero kailangan ng mas malalim na investigasyon sa storya. Next, the story has to have consequences. So the guiding thought for all investigative journalists is the belief that society may change for the better. So, kailangan natin isulat to dahil kailangan tayong may baguhin. Kailangan may ayusin sa mga bagay-bagay. Kinakailangan may bago or kinakailangan may patunayan tayong bagay na mali itong ginagawa or kung tama man, kinakailangan na mas i-improve pa. Kinakailangan mas mamulat yung mga tao sa impormasyon na dinidiscuss mo sa storya mo. Next, the journalist has to prove all the facts by himself or herself. So, madalas sinasabi natin, I read it in the newspaper or I was told so off the record. Parang mga ganun. So, kinakailangan lahat ng impormasyon or each piece of information published in a text or aired on broadcast outlets or platforms, an investigative journalist has to provide proof which he personally found. kinakailangan siya mismo nakadiskubre or of course we have sources pero siya mismo mag-i-interview ng sources, siya mismo ang maghahanap ng patotoo na yung source na o yung sinasabi ng source ay kapani-paniwala or kinakailangan paniwalaan, worth publishing. So hindi pwede na na-ere mo na tapos bigla mong babawiin na mali pala yung sinabi ng source ko. So parang sabi nga, kapag ikaw yung nag-aakusa, yung burden of proof nasa iyo. So, ganun din kapag ikaw ay nagsusulat ng isang storya for an investigative report, kinakailangan, ikaw mismo yung magpapatunay or ikaw maghahanap ng mga patunay sa mga claims mo doon sa iyong mga reports. So, it is necessary to meet a number of conditions in order to develop investigative journalism. So these are the key concerns. So there is an investigative puzzle. So bakit natin ito ginagawa? Anong meron dito? Anong mga concerns kapag ikaw ay nagsusulat ng investigative report? First, it takes time, of course. So unlike straight news or our daily news, so ako nagsusulat ako for Philippine Daily Inquirer and I used to write for broadcast for the radio industry. Siguro mga 15 to 20 minutes ang straight news. Kaya ko yung isulat na 15 to 20 minutes. But in investigative journalism, you need time. So if you will allocate 2 to 3 months for this investigation, you should. Kasi hindi pwedeng hilaw yung storya na i-ere sa radyo or sa television, lalo na for broadcast. So for print, madaling tumawag, madaling ganyan, but for broadcast, for radio, kailangan ng voice clip, for television, kailangan ng footages, so kinakailangan mas mahabang oras ang investigation. So investigation takes a long time, several months or even years. So you will try to convince your editor that it would be worth it if you spend some time not hanging around the office but in the field. So kailangan lumabas, hanapin mo yung kasuluk-sulukan ng area kung saan yung source mo or kung saan yung footages, kung saan mo makukuha yung relevant information or yung proof doon sa istorya mo. Next, it takes money, of course. Investigations may be quite expensive. Lalo na kailangan mong mamasahe, of course. Kailangan mo ng transportation allowance. Kailangan mo minsan magbigay ng tip doon sa mag-guide sa'yo para hanapin yung tao na gusto mong interviewin pero hindi ka sabay doon or I mean, hindi kinakailangan na magbayad ka doon sa resource person mo or sa magiging anong tawag dyan, magiging source mo ng information or kung confidential ang information mo, pwede naman gumamit ng pseudonym or pwedeng aliases sa pagre-report for print and even for broadcast. Hindi pwede na yung mga nagpapatago ng pangalan ay bibigyan mo ng pera or babayaran mo. So, kinakailangan wholeheartedly nila i-share yung information na alam nila. Next, the public that would react to the story. So, isa ito sa mga concerns na kapag ikaw ay nagsusulat, so iisipin mo kung how would the people react to your story or your investigative report. Investigative journalism is effective only if the public reacts to what was published and seeks change indicated in the investigation. So, kinakailangan, bago ka magsulat, alam mo muna kung anong magiging reaction ng mga tao, anong possible questions ng mga tao, ano pa ba ang kulang, lalo na kapag nagsusulat ka pa, lalo na kapag meron ka pa naman na oras before the presentation of the story. So there are elements of investigative reports that we need to identify for us to determine if this is an investigative report or this is a daily news. So according to Alito Malinaw of the book Journalism for Filipinos, there are 3 elements of investigative reporting. So first, hidden. So the subject is being hidden from the public. So usually, it is an anomaly in the government like overpricing or other forms of graft and corruption. So you can write a story about corruption in the government, about controversial bidding of a certain project of the DPWH, lalo na't madalas na i-report na isa ang DPWH sa mga uh, agencies na may corruption nangyayari, ang Bureau of Customs, then iba pang mga istorya. So we can say that this is worth writing for an investigative report if it is about graft and corruption. So that is one of the examples. Next, it is something interesting. So the report is interesting from the point of view not only of the journalists, but also for the readers or of the readers. So if you're writing only about how your friend eloped with your girlfriend or how you lost a few backs of one or two, three artists, you may as well keep this to yourself. So kinakailangan mag-generate siya ng great interest or greater interest. Mas interesante yung istorya na isusulat mo. Next, personal investigation. So the journalist should do the investigation personally. So you cannot delegate the investigation to subordinates before you can write an expose. So of course, you do it yourself. Kinakailangan ikaw nag-investigate. Hindi pwede na binigay lang sa'yo yung recorded interview or kinopya mo sa ibang radio stations or print media, then you write it as your own. To do so is to get only a second-hand information. A good investigative report is something that is based on the first-hand or eyewitness account. Halugagin mo yung lahat ng dokumento, then ikaw mismo maghahanap ng direct informant or resource person to prove your claims or to prove the claims in that document. So what are the different approaches in investigative reporting? First, you must be diligent and thorough in record searching. So public and private records are the factual basis for the most investigative news stories. So learn not only how to get them, but also how to use them properly. So, kinakailangan, sabi ko nga, ang journalist ay kinakailangan na all-knowing. Hindi naman yung all-knowing na ikinalalaki na ng ulo mo, but the preliminary procedures or the constitution or lahat ng mga bagay-bagay dapat alam mo kung paano nagwo-work. Alam mo ang bylaws, alam mo kung anong laman ng constitution, alam mo kung paano umiikot ang batas, alam mo kung, halimbawa, kapag merong holiday, alam mo kung kailan magdo-double pay, alam mo kung kailan 75% lang, kung kailan 30% lang ang makukuha ng isang isang empleyado. Example, although dole concern, pero kapag ikaw ay isang journalist, paano pag biglang nagpo-programa ka, tapos pag may nagtanong, paano po pag, halimbawa, day off ko, tapos nataon po na holiday, tapos pinapasok ako ng boss ko, ilang percent po ang makukuha ko? 200% po or additional 30% lang? So, mga ganong concerns, kinakailangan alam mo yan. So, ibig sabihin, alam mo kung paano gagamitin yung mga detalye na meron ka. Next, appropriate interviewing. So, in the later portion of the semester, we will discuss interviewing. Learn the art of good interviewing. So that's why even in our even in other subjects, I also give you time or time to explore the art of questioning. So you explore the styles of questioning by determining some points or kinakailangan kayo mismo ang mag ah, craft ng sarili niyong mga tanong kasi kayo yung mag-i-interview, 'di ba? Hindi puwede na iba yung nagbigay ng tanong tapos ikaw pala yung mag-i-interview. Kinakailangan familiar ka sa topic mo para makagawa ka ng artful questions for your scheduled interview. You can substantiate your assertions or charges by interviewing concerned officials or knowledgeable sources. So, kailangan skill mo din yon na kapag ang topic ay about lupa, alam mo na ang i-interviewin mo ay Bureau of Land or Bureau or the Registry of Deeds. So if you will be exploring an issue about uh, land owned by the government, so you can interview the HLURB, ba? The Housing Land Reform. I forget the meaning of the U and RB. Then, if you will be exploring about uh, franchise, of course, pupunta ka sa licensing division. Mag-explore ka about uh, business permit. Pwede din sa SEC or uh, the local government. So, mga ganon. I-skill mo yon. Kinakailangan mong malaman kung paano explore yung istorya. Next, statistical analysis. An investigative reporter should know how to use the results of surveys and other scientific data gathering techniques. So, sabi niya, kaya ako nag-broadcasting, kaya ako nag-journalism dahil ayaw ko ng math, ayaw ko ng addition, ng subtraction, ng division, or whatever related to computation. But still, you need to be a mathematician if you will be exploring or if you will be engaging in journalistic work. Kailangan alam mo kung papaano at least yung percentage man lang, yung frequency, alam mo ang basic mathematics. Anyway, kung masyadong malalim naman na statistical analysis, you always have uh, a chance to interview accountants or auditors. Pwede naman mag-interview ka kung hindi mo naiintindihan. Next, using an undercover tactics. So sometimes the reporter has to conceal his identity in order to learn about the activities of a group he is investigating. So, kinakailangan, alam mo kung saan ka pupunta, alam mo kung sino yung mga lalapitan mo para mag-investiga. Of course, hindi ka agad-agad, lalo na kung controversial yung topic, hindi ka agad-agad magpapaschedule ng interview with that confidential informant or medyo malaking personalidad na involved sa isang corruption, say for example, or graft and corruption. So, mag-iimbestiga ka muna, initial data gathering ka muna about that person. Next, get your editor's nod. So don't attempt to write an investigative report without first clearing it with your editor. So gathering of material for an expose needs a lot of time and efforts, and it will be a great waste. So, if after writing the story, your editor will not use it. And then, mas maganda din na bago magsulat, aalamin mo muna or i-consult mo muna yung story sa editor mo para mabigyan ka ng guide. Kami, madalas ganun. Kahit yung mga feature story lang na tinatanong namin kung anong magandang angle, magpipitch ka ng story, then you will ask for better angle, then magtatanong ka kung malay mo kung may kakilala sila kasi madalas yung mga editor, yung mga batikan na yan sa media. So, mas marami silang kakilala, mas alam mo kung paano explore sino mga i-contacts mo, then ano mga detalyes yung mga kailangan mong idagdag. Next, master the basics. These cannot be overemphasized. A reporter who makes factual errors or misquotes his sources will not last long in the profession. Of course, if not liable, you will be fired by your company. Nothing can hurt the reporters and paper's credibility more than a correction or denial in the next day's issue. Kaya, it's better to record all your interviews. Hindi pwede na sasaba ka sa interview na walang recording. So, if you will be scheduling an interview, make sure a day or a night before or a day before your scheduled interview, your phone has enough space for more than an hour interview, or naka-ready na lahat, i-charge na lahat, yung pang-record mo, yung pang-capture mo ng photo, basta lahat ng gadget na pwede mong gamitin para maka-back up ka ng ebidensya. Kasi lalo na kapag mga confidential, controversial issues, sigurado magde-deny. And make sure you do not misquote them. Or ibig sabihin ng misquote, iba yung interpretation mo sa uh, sinabi niya. Kaya isa din yun sa pag-aaralan natin sa Art of Questioning na lilinawin mo lahat sa kanya. Dapat sa kanya mismo manggaling yung impormasyon. Siya mismo nag-interpret ng sinabi niya. Hindi ikaw yung mag interpret ng sinabi na lalo na yung mga confidential issues. Bite off only what you can chew. Ibig sabihin, don't try to write something that you are not familiar with. Ba? So if you are more on environment, so don't write stories about mathematics, ba? So kinakailangan ano din, pinag-aralan mo din, or sabi lahat naman napapag-aralan, pero kinakailangan expertise mo din yung gusto mong isulat. Next, weigh tips carefully. Be wary of tips or advanced information provided by people with access to grind or with enemies to level with. So baka ginagamit ka lang din. Ask yourself if the person giving the information is in position to know. So if your answer is yes, check out the tip. Then ask for documentation. So hindi agad-agad sasaba ka sa detalye. Minsan kasi may mga kakilala tayo na gagamitin ka lang para siraan yung other side for personal pala nila, for kumbaga may personal bias din sa kanila. Then lalo na ngayong election, hindi pwede na basta-basta lang sasabak sa mga istorya na hindi legitimate, or minsan legitimate man pero magagamit ka lang din. Next, watch other investigative reporters work. Pero pag mga investigative, bibihira lang din unless galing yan sa isang expose, unless it is already known to public. Pero kapag kapag na-scopan mo yung iba, mahirap din i-compare. Although, you can still check on other angles of the story that has already been published. Next, read all you can in this field. Go to the library and look for books and periodicals specializing on investigative reporting or yung mga previous stories related to the information that you are gathering or the story that you are working on. So what are the characteristics of investigative report? First, it is adversarial in nature. Adversarial in nature. It should take a line in contrary to what is being given officially. A suspicion of an anomaly or wrongdoing should be properly documented to convince the reader. So, kinakailangan mas malalim yung uh, uh, pag-intindi mo sa mga bagay-bagay. Kinakailangan dokumentado, kinakailangan mapatunayan mo sa mga tao, sa mga readers mo, sa mga viewers mo na totoo to. Based on the account of your resource persons and of course, the paper trails. Next, it is moralistic in tone. So sometimes the reporter should take a holier than thou stands. So what is normal is condemnable and therefore must be exposed, or I mean immoral. Yung mga immoral na mga gawain or mga wrongdoings ay kinakailangan i-correct. So ganun, merong ganun ang investigative reporting. Next, concerns the public sector. So in the public sector, the investigative report is mostly on the misuse of funds, mismanagement, and abuse of power. Especially during the pandemic. Ngayong pandemic, marami mga issues na ang gandang isulat, ang gandang sulatan ng istorya. Kaso na taon election, baka magamit lang din ang istorya mo sa election or as election propaganda. Next, checking and rechecking of sources. So it is necessary to check and recheck your documents. Any unverified report poses the danger of damaging the papers or, of course, your credibility and your company's credibility. Kaya nga, di ba, kitang-kita naman sa mga story or tayo, pinag-aaralan natin yan. Even yung mga media outlets, media outfits, alam natin kung sino yung mga pro or anti-government or kung sino yung walang pinapanigan, nasa gitna lang. So makikita naman natin the way they present. Next, involves investment of time, money, and human resources. So kinakailangan uh, ang isang investigative report ay pag-aaralan talaga ng mabuti, pagbibigyan, paglalaanan ng panahon. Takes courage, persistence, conviction, and enterprise on the part of the reporter and, of course, the paper. So this is somehow one of the traits of an investigative journalist. Now let's define or differentiate investigative from straight news. So in investigative reporting, you need some magnifying lenses. While in straight news, you just need common sense, I think, the 5 Ws and 1 H, and the angle of the story. So let's differentiate it with these examples. Example, press con. Reporters attend a press conference and then write about it. What do you think? Is this an investigative report or a daily story or a straight news? Press con? Nag-attend ka ng press con, nagsulat ka, sinend mo, in 15 to 20 minutes nakapag-report ka na. This is a straight news. How about this one? Expose. Reporters write story on anomaly on bidding of the construction of international airports. On October 7 or 17, parang bubuksan na yung international airport dyan sa Daraga. What's this? Anomaly on bidding of construction of international airport. So this is an investigative report. How about this one? Corruption. Reporters uncover wrongdoing by individuals and institutions. Corruption in the Department of Health. This is an example of an investigative report. Incident. Reporters interview those wounded in a police operation and then report what they have been told. Parang halimbawa, isang simpleng banggaan sa kalye or sa road or isang road accident, then in-interview yung police, then anong mga nakita, anong initial report, anong initial details. Yon, this is a straight news. So when we say straight news or we call it daily news, reporting is seldom investigative. It is mostly reactive. So parang simpleng bagay lang, then simpleng report lang, isahang kita mo, alam mo na kung anong magiging angulo ni report mo. That's it. That is considered as straight news. So in the daily news, reporting is based on a single source. Or pwede din, parang ang istorya, ang straight news ay pwedeng isang source lang or isang angulo lang nga ng istorya. Pwede na. But in investigative reporting, it involves digging up what is secret or hidden. So parang kapag secret, hindi lang isang tao yung kailangan na tanungin mo or kailangan na magpatunay, marami pa na impormasyon, maraming papeles, maraming dokumento, or maraming tao ang kailangan na magpatunay sa isang bagay. Revealing scandals or violation of laws, regulations, and ethical or moral standards by individuals or institutions. So, hindi madaling mag-akusa ng isang bagay, malaking bagay sa isang institution or lalo na opisina ng gobyerno na of course, kapag mga politicians ang may hawak, mahirap patunayan or mahirap banggain. So, kinakailangan mas malalim. Just like the Janet Napoles report na encounter ko ay naka-attend ako ng ng seminar, training seminar with the reporter who wrote, or reporter from Philippine Daily Inquirer who wrote the first story expose about Janet Lim Napoles, about the pork barrel scam. So, sabi niya mga more than a year niyang pinag-aralan yung bundles of uh, numbers or uh, audit reports. So dahil journalist nga, medyo ano sa math, medyo semplang sa math, ang daming mga auditors, mga accountants ang tumulong sa kanya or hiningan niya ng tulong para i-interpret yung audit reports na yon. Ang dami, ang kakapal ng audit reports, halos isang kwarto daw na pinag-aralan niyang audit reports bago na isulat ng buo yung pinakaunang report about the pork barrel scam, examining the policies or functions of governments, companies, and other organizations. So we have different words that would describe investigative reporting: digging up, revealing, uh, ethical moral standards, examining, describing social, economic, political, and cultural trends. So when we say political, economical, cultural, or social, we need more time in the description or just defining these words. We need to be more critical. These are the concepts that we need to know in investigative reporting. So, in the next chapters, we will dig more on the concepts in identifying topics for investigative reporting.